In a quiet corner of a working-class neighborhood known as Pinecrest Lane, nestled just south of the city limits of Fallridge, my family finally moved into the house that had nearly drained every cent of our savings. It was late October. The air had a sharp edge to it, and the smell of fresh paint still lingered faintly on the walls inside. For almost 3 years, my parents had poured their weekends and evenings into renovating the place. It had been abandoned when we bought it. Broken windows, water damage, a sagging roof. My dad, a construction worker by trade, refused to hire anyone else. He called it our family project. I hated the house for most of those years. I was 15 when they bought it. By the time we moved in, I was pushing 18 and had grown tired of sawdust and scaffolding. Still, the day we finally settled in, I remember thinking, maybe this will feel like home now. The neighborhood wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. Families had lived here for decades. People waved from their driveways, and some even brought over homemade cookies on moving day. My younger sister, Lily, made a friend across the street within hours. It was a warm welcome, and for the first week, nothing felt wrong. Until one morning at exactly 5:03 a.m., I had woken up unusually early, the kind of wake-up where your body jolts like it's forgotten how to breathe. I didn't feel scared, just thirsty. I padded down the creaky hallway toward the kitchen. It was still dark outside. I didn't turn on any lights. We have this wide kitchen window that faces the street. It's the first thing you see when you walk in. As I filled my glass at the sink, I glanced out and paused. There was a man under the streetlight across the road. He wasn't walking a dog. He wasn't jogging. He was just pacing. Slowly, deliberately. He kept walking back and forth, arms stiff at his sides. After a few seconds, he suddenly stopped and looked straight up, right at the window, at me. I ducked back instinctively, heart jumping into my throat. I waited a few seconds before peeking out again. He was walking away down the street now. No rush. Just moving along like nothing happened. I told myself it was probably nothing. Could have been a neighbor. Could have been someone heading to work. It was still dark. My eyes might have played tricks on me. I didn't tell my parents. Didn't even mention it to Lily. But that was the first time I saw him. June came, and summer break started. Our lives settled into a rhythm. Work, chores, late-night movie binges. It had been months since that morning. I'd forgotten all about the man under the streetlight, until one night, around 3 a.m., when I was pulled out of sleep by the dogs losing their minds downstairs. They were both rescue mutts, Daisy and Roscoe, and usually only barked if a squirrel so much as sneezed outside. But this barking was different. Frantic, angry, panicked. I stumbled down the stairs, hissing at them to shut up before they woke my dad. They wouldn't stop. I went to the living room window, and there he was. Same man, same spot, same dead-still posture under the streetlight. This time, he wasn't pacing. He was staring, directly at the house. I couldn't tell if he could see me, but his body was turned toward the living room, toward us. I flicked the light on without thinking. Within 2 seconds, he turned and walked away down the street again. I stood there frozen for almost a minute. Then I finally went upstairs and told my dad everything. He grumbled something about weirdos and early birds, told me to let him know if he came back, and rolled over. That was it. A week ago, I was in the backyard around 9:45 p.m. My parents were out late helping my aunt move apartments, and Lily was staying the night at a friend's. I was alone, hauling out boxes from a storage pod we'd been renting. Most of the stuff in there was junk, but I needed to grab my old guitar case. A friend wanted to borrow it, and I'd promised I'd bring it the next day. As I was dragging the heavy box across the yard, Roscoe started barking from inside the house. Daisy joined in within seconds. I stood up, instantly alert. My skin crawled before I even saw him. I turned toward the front of the house. There he was again. Same exact man, standing in the same exact place, not under the streetlight this time, closer. on our sidewalk, facing the front of the house. I couldn't tell if he was looking at me or the windows, but he wasn't moving. Adrenaline surged, and I sprinted inside, grabbed the metal baseball bat from the coat closet, opened the front door, and there he was, still there, still watching. "Hey," I yelled. "Hey, get back here, asshole." The moment he heard my voice, he turned and ran. Fast, like he'd done this before. He was gone in seconds. By the time my parents got home, I was shaken. They were furious. My mom yelled first, about how reckless it was to go outside alone. My dad called the cops immediately. A squad car showed up around midnight. The officer was kind, but all they could really do was file a report. "Call us right away if it happens again," he said. "Sometimes these guys test the boundaries, see who notices. Be careful, okay?" Last night it escalated. We had just gotten home from a family dinner at my uncle's. It was late, maybe 11:15 p.m. As our car pulled into the driveway, the headlights swept across the front lawn. He was standing in our yard, not across the street, not on the sidewalk, on our lawn, facing our house like he was trying to memorize it. The second the light hit him, he bolted. My mom screamed. Lily cried. I froze in place. But my dad? He threw the car into park, jumped out, and grabbed the pistol from the glove compartment. He stood in the driveway yelling, but the man was already halfway down the block. My mom herded us all inside and called 911 while Dad stayed outside watching. He told us later that the man had stopped running for a moment, turned around, and just stared at him, unmoving, for almost 30 seconds. Then he vanished around the corner. I didn't sleep last night. Neither did my parents. Lily eventually passed out on the couch, clutching Roscoe like a stuffed animal. We checked the security cameras we'd installed a few weeks ago. The footage showed what we saw, him standing there then running. But nothing else. No car, no sound, just him. My dad stayed up until dawn, sitting in the dark with the pistol on the table. I've started wondering how long this has really been going on. Just because we've seen him a few times doesn't mean those were the only times he was there. How many nights did I sleep soundly while he stood just a few feet away? Watching? Who is he? What does he want? And why us? July 2nd. It happened again. Only this time I saw him from the upstairs hallway window. He wasn't outside. He was standing in our backyard. I didn't scream, didn't move. I just stared. He was closer than ever. Hands at his sides, breathing slow. No weapon I could see. But the look on his face, blank, not angry, not curious, just blank, sent chills through my entire body. He turned and walked away when I flicked the porch light on. My dad ran outside within seconds. Nothing. No sign of him. We filed another police report. That was 3 nights ago. We've since installed motion lights, more cameras, and Dad's taken a week off work. We've had neighbors over to talk. Most haven't seen anything, though one woman 4 doors down admitted she's noticed someone shady walking past a few times around midnight. I don't leave the house alone anymore, even in the daytime. I don't sleep much. Neither does my dad. We're thinking about moving again. I wish this was just a creepy story to tell friends. I wish it had some neat ending where we caught him or he disappeared forever. But the truth is, I don't know when or if he'll come back. And I don't know what will happen if he does, but I do know one thing. I never see him arrive. I only ever see him when he's already there. In a quiet neighborhood tucked behind a railroad line and flanked by fields of soybeans and corn, there was a little yellow house with peeling paint and a rusted wind chime that never stopped spinning. That's where I grew up, on Sycamore Street, a place that was as much a character in my childhood as any person. My name is Ellie. I was the youngest of 8 kids, 5 boys and 3 girls. Our home was full of hand-me-downs, packed lunches, and noise. Always noise. We were what some might call a big family, the kind with the kind of chaos that kept the fridge door constantly open and the screen door slamming every few minutes during summer. We didn't have much money, but we had each other. And our dog, Max, a big Rottweiler mix who was more of a bodyguard than a pet. We weren't allowed to roam far. 2 blocks, tops, and never alone. If I wanted to go anywhere, one of my older brothers had to come along. Sometimes when they got tired of playing babysitter, Max came with me instead, trailing behind like a silent chaperone. My parents were strict, but they weren't paranoid. They were cautious. Because of him. Everyone in the neighborhood knew about the man in the blue house with the overgrown yard. He was old, gray hair slicked back, always wore the same dirty windbreaker no matter the season. Lived alone. Drove a brown sedan that barely ran. The sort of man who stared too long and smiled too slow. We never learned his real name. My brothers called him Creeper Carl, though I doubt that was his name. He lived on Hazel Drive, which intersected Sycamore Street at the end of our block. Right next door to him lived a couple everyone adored, Don and Nancy Barrett. They were like honorary grandparents to most of the neighborhood kids, childless but always hosting birthday parties, paying us for small chores, letting us swim in their above-ground pool during July heat waves. Don was a retired firefighter. Nancy ran a home bakery. Both were kind, funny, and fiercely protective. My parents trusted them, especially to look after me when the older kids had school activities or work shifts. I spent hours at their house, playing in the backyard, helping Nancy bake, even helping Don sort tools in his garage. But what none of us realized was that being that close to safety doesn't mean you're safe. It was a late spring afternoon, the kind where the air smells like fresh-cut grass and the sun stays a little too long in the sky. Don and Nancy were having a yard sale. My brother Caleb, 3 years older than me, was in charge of watching me that day, and Don offered him $10 to help carry tables and watch the money box while people browsed. I was 7. That age where you're still in love with Barbie dolls and can spend hours making up stories with nothing but a stick and some dirt. I was sitting on the Barrett's porch steps, knees pulled up, combing my Barbie's hair. People came and went. Someone bought an old lamp. Another bought a toolbox. I wasn't really paying attention. Caleb was inside helping Don carry out an old coat rack. Nancy was with a woman haggling over a vintage toaster. That's when I saw him. The man from Hazel Drive. He looked even older in daylight, skin like paper, eyes sunken in, mouth curling at the corners like a damp newspaper. He walked slowly, eyes scanning the tables like he was shopping, but he didn't touch anything. Then he turned toward me. He crouched, too close. I froze. "Pretty girl," he whispered. I could smell cigarettes on his breath. He reached out and touched my hair. Not a pat, a stroke. Then he smiled wide, looked around as if joking with someone who wasn't there, and said, "How much for her?" I didn't scream right away. I remember my throat tightening, my body going cold. Then came the warmth. I wet myself. It spread down my legs, and I felt ashamed before I felt scared. Then I screamed, loud, over and over. "Caleb! Mr. Don! Help!" The man didn't move, just looked at me, amused, like I was the one being inappropriate. Caleb came running out the front door so fast he almost tripped down the steps. Don was right behind him. I remember Caleb scooping me up like I weighed nothing and running down the street with me in his arms. I buried my face in his shoulder, sobbing. Don stayed behind. I don't know what he said to the man, but I know police were never called. That man kept living on Hazel Drive. He was never arrested, never questioned. Because that's how it works in neighborhoods like ours. You don't call the cops. You handle things quietly. You protect your own. But that day changed everything. For weeks after, I refused to leave the house. I slept with the hallway light on. Max started sleeping in my room again, curled up by the door like a sentinel. My parents were furious, but not at me, at themselves, for letting their guard down even for a second. My mom called Nancy and cried on the phone. My dad nailed a new lock on our front gate, but I could tell they felt helpless. Because what do you do when the danger lives down the street and hasn't technically broken any law? We stopped going to the Barretts for a while, not because they did anything wrong, but because I couldn't stand walking past that blue house. Eventually, summer came. I started going outside again, but always with Caleb or Max or both. My freedom was limited, my innocence chipped away by that one sentence. How much for her? Years later, I found out that we weren't the only ones. When I was 17, a girl named Rachel who lived 2 blocks over said she remembered him too. He used to sit in his car near the playground, just watching. Another boy said the man offered him candy once when he was biking home from school. No one ever reported him. No one had any proof. It was always just rumors, whispers, unconfirmed fear. The Barretts moved when I was in high school. Don had a stroke and they went to live closer to family. Their house got sold to a young couple with a baby. The blue house stayed empty after Creeper Carl died. I heard he passed away in his sleep, alone. But the story doesn't end there, because the horror of that moment stayed with me long after he was gone. I flinched when strangers touched my shoulder. I avoided eye contact with older men. I became someone who double-locked the door and checked behind my car seat every night. Some people think horror is ghosts and monsters, but the real horror is a man asking for a price on your life before you're old enough to understand what he means. The real horror is when your safe space, the neighbor's front porch, your Barbie doll, your brother being just a room away, isn't enough to stop the world from twisting into something sick. And the scariest part? Sometimes the monster lives 2 houses down. Sometimes he dies quietly, in a bed no one checks for days. No dramatic ending, no justice, just silence, and an empty blue house. Epilogue. I live in the city now, apartment complex with security cameras and locked gates. I don't have children yet, but I already know the rules all set. No going out alone, no talking to strangers, even the nice ones, and never, ever walk near the blue house, because even though it's not the same street, and that man is long gone, I know that somewhere, someone else is living on someone's Hazel Drive. And there's another little girl playing with her Barbie, unaware that she's about to hear something that will echo through the rest of her life. And that's what horror really is. I never expected anything to happen in that apartment. It was small, quiet, and just far enough from downtown to avoid the chaos, but close enough for me to get to work without stress. I moved in after a rough breakup and was eager for a reset. The place wasn't anything fancy, older hardwood floors, yellowed blinds, creaky pipes, but it had character. I remember thinking the hallway smelled like cinnamon and old paint. It felt lived in, not haunted. My name's Aaron. I'm 27 now, but I was 25 when I moved into Haverly Court Apartments, Building C, Unit 3B. Rent was affordable, and utilities were included. The landlord, an older woman named Mrs. Kirkland, was blunt but friendly, the kind of woman who knew everyone's name and the last time they paid rent. I signed the lease in August and moved in before the fall started to bite. My apartment faced the side alley and got barely any sunlight. Still, I liked it. It felt safe enough. I didn't know many people in the building. A few polite nods in the hallway, awkward elevator rides, quick haze if we crossed paths getting mail. There was a couple across from me, mid-30s, always arguing. A guy above me who stomped like he was wearing bricks for shoes. And then there was a man a few doors down from me. Quiet, lean, always wore a navy jacket even when it was hot. I didn't know his name. We'd only said hey to each other twice, maybe 3 times. Looking back, I should have trusted my first instinct about him. It was a Friday night in late July when it started. I had stayed in with popcorn and a blanket, watching Zodiac on my laptop. My lights were off, just the screen glowing in the dark. I was curled up on my couch, close to dozing off during a slower part of the film when I heard it. The soft click of metal and a slight rattle. I paused the movie. Another sound, this time louder. The doorknob. My doorknob. I sat up straight, my chest tightening. Someone was turning it, not knocking, not calling out, just turning it, testing it. I tiptoed over, barefoot on the hardwood. My apartment was tiny, kitchenette, living area, and the front door maybe 8 feet from the couch. I crept to the peephole and peeked out. A man was standing right outside. His face was angled down, focused on my doorknob. He wasn't fumbling, he wasn't swaying, he was concentrated, hands moving with purpose. Not like someone confused about where they lived. And it was him, the guy from a few doors down. For a moment I froze. I didn't know what to do. Call someone? Yell? I just watched. Then the door rattled slightly under my weight. I had leaned too far into it. He noticed. He looked up and saw the peephole, saw me, I think, and then backed away slowly. I heard his footsteps retreat down the hall. I waited for the sound of a door opening. It came, faintly. Then silence. I didn't sleep well that night. I stayed up, checking the peephole every 10 minutes. I didn't see him again. In the morning, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe it was a mistake. At around 9 a.m., I walked into the kitchen to get coffee. As I passed by the door, I heard something. A soft clink. I froze. Again, I looked out. It was him. The same guy. He was at my door again. No knocking, just trying the handle. Deliberate. Silent. He tried it once more, then turned and walked off like it was nothing. I stood there, heart pounding, gripping the curtain by the door. That wasn't drunk. That was something else. A few days passed. I hadn't seen him again, but the energy in the hallway felt different now. I avoided leaving at night. I kept my pepper spray clipped to my keys. I'd wedge a chair under my doorknob when I was home alone, which was often. Then one morning, as I was heading out for work, I saw him. We were walking toward each other down the hall. My pulse quickened. He made eye contact and offered a small smile. "Hey," he said. "Sorry about the other night. I think I might have confused your door for mine after going out. Bit of a blur, honestly. Hope I didn't freak you out." I wanted to be firm. I wanted to ask why he came back the next morning. Instead, I smiled politely and said, "Oh, no worries. It's all good." He nodded and kept walking. As soon as he turned the corner, I ducked back into my apartment, my mind racing. That didn't sit right with me. He didn't slur his words, he didn't look embarrassed. And his apartment. It was at the other end of the hall, opposite side. There was no way he could have confused the doors. Another week passed. Nothing happened. I almost convinced myself it was over. Then came the night that changed everything. It was around 11 p.m. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone. The apartment was quiet. Then I heard it. A soft knock at the door. Not urgent, not loud, just careful. I didn't move. I listened. Another knock. I sat up in bed. I crept to the front door and looked through the peephole. He was back, knocking gently, standing close, peering at the door like he was trying to see inside. I leaned forward slightly, and the door creaked again. His reaction was instant. He ducked to the side, around the corner, just out of view. He was hiding. I didn't breathe. 30 seconds passed. Then he stepped back into view and knocked again. I didn't answer. I didn't move. He waited for another minute, then turned and walked off. I didn't sleep at all that night. I started looking for a new place the next morning. I didn't care if I had to break my lease. I didn't feel safe anymore, and I wasn't going to wait until something worse happened. A few days before I moved out, I saw him again in the hallway. He was standing by the mailboxes, pretending to check his. He looked up, smiled. "You moving?" I hesitated. "Yeah, just need a change." He nodded, still smiling. "Makes sense. Too many weirdos around here, right?" I forced a laugh and walked past him. My legs felt like rubber. I moved out at the end of the month. I didn't tell Mrs. Kirkland the whole story, just that I had a job offer in another part of the city. She didn't ask questions. My new place is farther from town, newer, quieter. I sleep with the door deadbolted, a metal bar wedged under the handle, and my phone on my nightstand. Sometimes, though, I still have dreams about my old hallway. about soft knocks at midnight, about a man in a navy jacket standing too close to my door, too quiet, too still. And in those dreams, I never see what happens next, because I never open the door. I moved to Hartsfield Crest 3 years ago, a small gated subdivision nestled on the edge of Greenville. Clean streets, identical houses with perfectly edged lawns, and a neighborhood watch group that took their title seriously, almost theatrically. It was the kind of place where you'd expect to find lemonade stands in the summer and plastic pumpkins lining driveways in October. But more importantly for me, it was quiet, unassuming. The kind of place where nobody asked too many questions as long as you kept your grass trimmed and your trash days consistent. I needed that. My name's Jack Holloway. I'm 46, a father of 2, and a husband. I'm also a convicted felon. Spent 13 years in federal prison for a string of armed robberies I committed when I was in my 20s. No murders, no rapes. But I won't pretend the things I did didn't hurt people. I regret it every day. You wake up behind bars long enough and you start understanding the weight of what you've done. When I got out, I didn't expect a second chance. But I met Claire, my wife, during a re-entry program I volunteered for after parole. She was a caseworker, one of the good ones. Not naive, but kind. We got married 2 years after meeting. Our daughters, Ellie and Samantha, are 10 and 7. They know Dad used to be in prison. We've always been honest, but they don't know the details. They don't need to. Not yet. My job's with a private security firm. Ironically, we only hire former inmates. It's a way to give guys like me something productive to do, and honestly, we're good at it. Who better to protect a house than someone who used to know how to get into one? Life had been stable, safe, until 2 weeks ago. It started small, just a knock on the mailbox. A bent flag. I thought it was the wind or maybe a kid screwing around. Halloween had just ended and the neighborhood was still cluttered with foam gravestones and fake cobwebs. You let little things go. You assume the best. You always do. Then Claire found the note. It was wedged under her windshield wiper, folded twice. Thick paper. Ink that bled a little like it had been written in a rush. One word. Murderer. She handed it to me without saying anything, just watched my face as I read it. Her expression was unreadable, like she wasn't sure if she should be worried or angry or both. "Jack," she said carefully, "is there something you haven't told me?" "No," I said immediately, but I held the note a little tighter. Nobody died, ever. It was true, but it didn't matter. The next morning, someone had spray-painted a red X on our garage door. A lawn gnome, the one Samantha painted during summer break, was snapped clean in half. Our security cameras caught nothing. Whoever it was knew what they were doing. That unsettled me more than the act itself. Claire wanted to call the police. I told her to wait. "Let me handle it," I said. "That's not some macho thing. It's because I've been on both sides of that badge. I know what cops can and can't do, and I knew this wasn't random." Then came the picture. Another note. This one in the mailbox again, no envelope. Just a folded page with my old mugshot printed on it. One from over a decade ago when I was 28 and cocky. My hair was longer then. My eyes looked dead. And underneath the photo someone had scribbled, "Don't let him fool you." I stared at it for a long time. It had taken me months to track down a copy of that mugshot myself for my expungement hearing. How did someone else find it so easily? Ellie saw it on the counter later that day. She didn't ask questions. She just looked up at me and said, "Are people mad at you, Daddy?" That's when something in me snapped. "I want cameras in places they'll never expect," I told Claire that night. Inside the mailbox, inside the fake rock by the flower bed, motion sensors by the side gate. I'll put one behind the damn bird bath if I have to. "You think it's someone in the neighborhood?" she asked. "Has to be. No one else would care enough to dig this stuff up." "Should we go to the HOA?" I shook my head. Number. We're not giving them an excuse to get us kicked out. You know what it would look like if this got out. People talk. We set everything up within 48 hours. I pulled a few favors through work. Infrared, audio triggers, all of it. Our house became a trap, and I waited. A week passed, nothing. Then came Friday night. I was watching the camera feed from the den while Claire and the girls were asleep. Just background noise. Then, at 2:43 a.m., the mailbox cam tripped. I sat upright. He wasn't careful this time. Thin, maybe 17, 18. Hoodie pulled halfway back. No gloves, blonde hair, acne along his jawline. And when he slipped the note into the mailbox, he turned just enough for the camera to catch his face. Clear as day. I paused the footage, enhanced, saved, printed. I knew him. Not personally, but by sight. Lived 2 streets over. I'd seen him walking with a group of boys near the park a dozen times. Loud, stupid, but I had no idea he was watching me. I didn't call the police. I walked. His name was Tyler Martin. His parents lived on Redbridge Lane. Lights were on when I got there. They answered quickly. Maybe they'd seen me on their ring cam, or maybe they were just used to late-night knocks. Either way, Mr. Martin opened the door in sweatpants and a robe. "Can I help you?" he asked cautiously. "Yes," I said. "I need to talk to you about your son." They tried to shut it down at first, the way parents do when they think you're accusing their kid of stealing Halloween candy. But I came prepared, pulled out the printouts, showed them the footage, didn't raise my voice, just facts. Mrs. Martin went pale. Mr. Martin clenched his jaw. "Tyler!" he bellowed into the house. The kid came downstairs dragging his feet, saw me, stopped cold. He recognized me instantly. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," I said calmly, "but this ends tonight." Tyler started shaking. Literally, he couldn't even look me in the eye. His parents demanded answers. He confessed, sort of. "It was just for a video," he mumbled. "Me and some friends are doing this thing, true crime. We thought it would be cool to find someone in the neighborhood who, had a record. You know, like real-life stories." "And spray painting my house was part of that?" I asked. That wasn't me. That was Jason. I just wrote the notes." Claire was right. It was a group. "What were you planning to do next?" I asked. He didn't answer. I gave him 2 options. Option 1, I turn over the footage, press charges for vandalism, harassment, mail tampering, trespassing, you name it. Option 2, he pays for the damages and stays away from my family. No second chances. His father asked if I'd delete the footage if he paid. I said no. I wanted something to keep in my pocket, just in case. Call it insurance. They agreed. The next day, Tyler came over with his parents, handed me a check, didn't say a word. Claire and I took the girls to the park while they repainted the garage and cleaned up the yard. I never saw him again, but I still keep that footage. Not for revenge, for protection, because I know people like Tyler. They don't care about second chances, they only care about stories, clout, making something go viral. They don't understand the damage they leave behind, not until they have daughters of their own. People always say, you can't outrun your past. I'm not trying to outrun it. I'm trying to build something in spite of it. And if someone tries to tear that down, well, they'd better be ready for the kind of man I used to be. Not because I want to go back, but because I remember exactly what that man is capable of. And now, I use him to protect the ones I love. Even in neighborhoods like this. Especially in neighborhoods like this. I never used to lock the back gate. Ours was the kind of neighborhood where people left shoes on porches, where garden gnomes remained unbothered for years, and kids chalked up the sidewalks with hopscotch grids and messy stick figures. We moved to Fairview just over a year ago. Not far from the city, but far enough that people still wave to each other at the mailbox. I'd chosen this place because I wanted my daughter Ellie to grow up somewhere calm, somewhere I wouldn't have to constantly look over my shoulder. And for a while it worked. My husband and I bought a 2-bedroom with a fenced backyard, a creaky deck, and space enough for chickens. I got a coop second-hand off Marketplace and filled it with cluckers I named after famous authors: Bronte, Austen, Atwood. Ellie loved tossing them seeds and trying to pet their ruffled backs. She was only 2, barely stringing together sentences, but had already mastered opening the back screen door with a chair, which was cute until it wasn't. Saturday morning, 8:17 a.m. "Ellie," I called, stepping over a trail of couch cushions she'd dismantled into an obstacle course. The back screen was swinging open in the breeze and the chair was pushed up against the doorknob again. She was outside. Again. I ran through the kitchen, heart doing that leap it always did when I didn't see her immediately. Then, there she was. Barefoot, ponytail crooked, thudding down the deck stairs with that wild toddler energy, arms flailing in a way that always made her look like a cartoon. "Ellie, wait for Mommy," I shouted, slipping on my sneakers as I rushed out. She giggled, bolting across the yard toward the chicken coop. I was only a few steps behind her, catching her name in my throat when, crack, crack, crack. Gunshots. Real gunshots. They didn't sound like in the movies. They sounded sharp, loud, flat, like a door being slammed open inside your skull. 3 shots, maybe 4, I couldn't even count. My brain didn't register numbers, just sound and motion and danger. A man sprinted into the alley behind our house. He was close. Close enough that I could see the silver gun in his hand, could make out the material of his black pleather jacket, the green hood flapping behind his neck. His face was young, maybe 17, 18 at most, but something in it was wrong. Not panicked, not afraid, calm, focused, almost cold. He looked ahead like this was just another errand, grocery store, then a shootout. Nothing out of the ordinary. I didn't think. I grabbed Ellie mid-step, hoisting her up as she let out a startled squeal and ducked behind the coop. The wood panel scratched my arms as I pressed her to my chest, holding her head tight against me. My breath was caught somewhere between my ribs and throat. Ellie started screaming, pure, panicked, toddler shrieking. I couldn't hush her fast enough. I thought he'd keep running. He didn't. He veered left, right toward us. Jumped my neighbor's fence, the one that ran directly behind the chicken enclosure. He was walking. Calm again. The gun was still in his hand, held low like he was debating whether to raise it. I didn't dare breathe. Ellie's shriek was the only sound on the street. And that's when he stopped. Mid-step. One hand on the neighbor's gate, the other gripping the gun. He heard her, and he turned. His head started to pivot toward the noise, toward us. Fairview hadn't always been like this. The neighborhood Facebook page used to be full of potluck invites and baby clothes giveaways. Then in February, someone's car got broken into, then another. Then someone posted about hearing a fight in the alley. Police showed up once, nothing came of it. People shrugged it off. Then a little girl from a nearby suburb was killed, caught in the crossfire of a broad daylight shootout at a park. That shook me. The park wasn't even 10 miles away. We'd been there the weekend before, Ellie toddling up the jungle gym steps, chattering to strangers. I started locking the front door more. I added a latch to the back fence, but I never thought we were in danger. Not real danger. Not danger that could reach through our fence and grab us by the throat. Back to Saturday, 8:19 a.m. He didn't see us. Not fully. I shifted behind the coop, barely breathing. Ellie sobbed against my shirt. Her voice was the only thing anchoring me to reality. I remember thinking, don't move, don't look up, don't let him see your face. Because if he did see my face, see my eyes, see the knowing, I was sure he'd shoot. Not because he wanted to, but because he'd feel he had to. I'd be a witness, a problem, and she'd be collateral. He held there, frozen, for a second that stretched too long. The kind of second you can live a whole lifetime inside. Then, as if someone had pulled him by invisible wire, he moved again. Calmly tucked the gun into his pocket, opened the neighbor's gate, and ran. Jumped another fence. Gone. Gone like he'd never been there. I grabbed Ellie tighter than I'd ever held her and ran inside. Slammed the sliding glass door, locked the deadbolt, pulled every curtain. Ellie cried harder, frightened by the suddenness of it all, the way I moved like something was chasing us. It was, even though it was gone. I called 911. They put me on hold. For 10 minutes. 10:02 a.m. Police arrive. 2 officers. Neither looked older than 30. One took notes. The other looked around the alley like he expected the shooter to pop back out like a game of whack-a-mole. My neighbor, Mrs. Hargrove, had also seen him. She'd just opened her back door to take out the trash and ducked the moment she heard the shots. Her testimony lined up with mine. Same jacket, same silver gun, same path over the fence. They said they'd patrol the area. They didn't sound confident. No arrests, no suspect in custody, no one even sure who he was shooting at. That night, 11:33 p.m. Every time a car passed the house, I checked the window. Every thump of the heater, every gust against the side of the house made my stomach drop. I kept seeing that kid's face. Not the fear, but the lack of it. The absolute composure in the middle of chaos. He was walking through a family neighborhood with a loaded gun like he was on his way to brunch. I lay in bed with Ellie next to me. She'd finally passed out after hours of clinging and crying. I kept one arm around her the whole night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that silver gun turn toward me, felt the weight of that second. What would I have done if he'd turned? Sunday morning, 9:45 a.m. We didn't go outside. I didn't open the blinds. I held Ellie on the couch, watching reruns of Bluey until the TV blurred into background noise. My husband, Jake, was away on a business trip. He wanted to come back early, but the flights were full. I lied and said we were fine. The truth was, I was scared to even speak about it. Like naming it out loud would make him come back. Like I could conjure him with fear. The days after the police didn't find the shooter, or the person he was aiming at. I read about a body found a few miles away, shot in the back. No connection made officially, but I wondered. The alley stayed empty for days. Then the world moved on. People started mowing their lawns again. Kids rode scooters on the sidewalk. Mrs. Hargrove waved to me while watering her marigolds, but I stopped going into the yard. I moved Ellie's sandbox to the front porch, and I started checking the lock on the gate 10 times before bed. 1 week later, 8:20 p.m. I heard the cluck of the chickens, sharp, sudden. I peeked through the blinds. The gate was open, wide open. I hadn't opened it since that day. I froze. No chickens in sight. I grabbed my phone. Dialed 911 again. This time they picked up. Police came. Found the coop door unlatched. Chickens gone. Footprints near the gate. Human. Too large to be mine or Ellie's. They couldn't prove anything. Said it was probably a raccoon or stray dog. Maybe someone trying to steal the chickens for fun. Kids do dumb things. But I knew better. He'd come back. Not to shoot. To see if I was still there. To check. To warn me. Or maybe just to look. 2 months later, we sold the house. Moved 4 states away. I don't care if it was drastic. I don't care if it seems paranoid. I watched a shooter stop mid-escape, mid-flight, and almost turn his gun on a mother and child. Not out of rage, but out of logic. And when someone's violence feels logical to them, you can't predict what they'll do next. I lock every door, every window. I never let Ellie out of my sight. I have nightmares where that gun does turn toward us and I wake up screaming with my arms wrapped so tight around her she can't breathe. She's 3 now. She still cries when she hears loud noises. She doesn't like the backyard. She asked me why we left our old house. I don't know what to tell her, so I just say, because where we live now is safer. Even if I'm not sure it is. Because I don't think the danger was just him. I think the danger is this feeling, this knowing, This terrifying truth. Sometimes you can do everything right, lock the doors, raise the fence, live in a good neighborhood, and danger will still find you. And sometimes it stands just feet away, deciding, thinking, choosing whether you live or die, and you never get to know why it let you go. I used to think I had a pretty good sense of who my neighbors were. My husband, Aaron, and I had just moved into a 6-story walk-up in the Flatbridge neighborhood of Hartley, New Jersey. It wasn't far from the city, just enough outside the main drag to be affordable, but close enough that you could still hear the echo of the subway if you left your window open on a quiet night. It was one of those older brick buildings with rust-colored stair rails, cracked mailboxes, and a small vestibule with more cobwebs than lights. We were on the top floor, apartment 6B. We weren't new to city life. Before Hartley, we lived in a smaller studio over in East Vernon, where paper-thin walls let you hear every sneeze, argument, and breakup as if you were a guest in your neighbors' lives. Compared to that, this place felt peaceful. The building had a cast of regulars, Mrs. Lang from 2A who overfed the pigeons, that guy Greg who constantly smelled like garlic and played the harmonica in the laundry room, and a young woman with green headphones who was always jogging the stairs instead of taking the elevator. We didn't know anyone too well, but we nodded, said hey, held the door open. All the standard city etiquette. That is, until the night Aaron suggested we check the neighborhood registry. It was a random Tuesday. We were both half bored, half curious. I think we'd been watching some crime documentary, and out of sheer paranoia, Aaron said, "Want to see if there are any creeps living around here?" I laughed, pulled out my phone, and opened the registry site. There were 4 dots within a 5-block radius. One of them was pinned directly over our building. I clicked it. The profile showed a blurry mugshot. Wild hair, sunken eyes, expression just short of manic. The name said Raymond C. Heller, age 46. Convicted for sexual assault of a minor over a decade ago. Served time, registered, now legally residing on premises. Unit unknown. Damn, I muttered, tilting the phone to show Aaron. He lives here. Aaron squinted. That face is familiar. He was right. Over the next few days, we realized we had seen him. He mostly hung around the block, sometimes setting up a folding table out front with a few bruised apples and bananas, yelling at people to support small business or screaming conspiracy theories about pesticides. We called him Fruit Stand Guy. He never approached us, never even spoke to us. But something about his stare, the way he watched people, made your skin pull tighter over your bones. We didn't think much of it. No kids, no parties. We mostly kept to ourselves. I worked the night shift at a legal archiving firm in the city, often coming home around 3:30 or 4 a.m. Aaron worked remotely, coding for some crypto startup, and usually stayed up late so he could buzz me in when I got home. That was our routine. It worked. Until it didn't. The first incident was small. So small I almost didn't think it was anything. I'd just gotten home after a 19-hour shift. The kind of tired where you're not sure if you're still awake or just hallucinating your way through the day. I fumbled with my keys, dropped them, and was about to knock when the door buzzed. Aaron had already gotten up and opened the door from inside. He looked past me, out into the hallway, then down the stairs. "Did someone follow you in?" he asked. I blinked. "What?" "I thought I heard someone behind you, but maybe I was just half asleep." We chalked it up to nerves. It was almost 4 in the morning. He went back to bed. I showered and collapsed on the couch. But things escalated quickly. 2 weeks later, same routine. I texted Aaron when I left the office. Me. Leaving now. 3:05 a.m. Aaron. "Kay, I'm up." I was halfway home when he called me. He never calls. His voice was low, urgent. "Don't come in the front door. Go around the back, I'll meet you." "What? Why?" "There's someone at our door right now." "I thought it was you, but I looked through the peephole. It's that fruit stand guy. He's naked." I didn't breathe for a few seconds. "What?" "He's trying the handle, just standing there, completely naked." When I looked out, he looked straight back. like he knew I was there. His eye was right up against the peephole. "You're joking," I whispered, already asking my driver to pull over. "I'm not. Don't come in the front." Then he hung up. The cab driver, a thick-necked man named Vince who often picked me up, must have seen the color drain from my face. "Everything okay?" I hesitated. "There's a naked man at my apartment door." Vince blinked. "You want me to walk you up?" I nodded. When we got there, the front of the building looked empty. Too quiet. The fruit stand was gone. Vince walked me up the stoop and waited until Aaron came outside to meet me. His face was pale. He was holding a crowbar from under the sink. "I tried to open the door when I thought it was you," Aaron explained. He pushed, tried to wedge his body in. I slammed it shut and locked it again. "You called the police?" "Yeah. They said they'd send someone." We stood there awkwardly for a few seconds, all three of us. Then came the sound. Footsteps. Running, pounding, echoing down the stairwell. "Let's go," Aaron said, pulling me toward the elevator. It was old and slow. We pressed the button at least 20 times before the doors opened. Inside, we held our breath. The elevator groaned as it rose. When we hit the 3rd floor, we heard it, the pounding again. This time not from stairs. Bang, bang, bang. He was slamming on the elevator doors. The floor read 3. Then we heard him turn, running up the stairs, fast. We held each other, pressed the close door button until it finally responded. When we reached our floor, we sprinted to 6B, slammed the door, locked it, then double-locked it. The police never came upstairs. When they did arrive, almost 2 hours later, they sat in their car and beeped their horn. Aaron went down to talk to them. They didn't get out. When he came back up, he was shaking. "They said it's not illegal to be naked in your own building," he said, and that unless he actually got into our apartment, they couldn't do anything. "They just don't care?" I asked. "They said," his voice broke, "you live in Hartley. Get used to it." We didn't sleep that night. We pushed a chair under the doorknob. I carried a kitchen knife to the bathroom. Every creak, every wind gust outside the window made us flinch. Aaron barely left the apartment the next few days. We filed a formal complaint with the landlord. Nothing happened. Ray still lived there, still shouted from his corner on the street. But now, we noticed things we hadn't before. Scratches around our doorframe. A broken light in the hallway that no one ever replaced. An old fruit peeler dropped just outside our apartment door. The final straw came the next week. We were lying in bed around midnight. We'd been trying to go to bed early to feel normal again. A sound broke the quiet. Click. We both sat up. It was the hallway light, the one just outside our door. It flickered, then turned off. Then came the jingling, that unmistakable sound of someone trying to work a lock from the outside. Aaron grabbed the crowbar again. I grabbed my phone. I turned on the camera and slowly stepped toward the peephole. But there was no eye this time. There was a cell phone, taped to the peephole. Camera lens facing us, recording. We moved out within 2 weeks, found a place across town, paid more than we could afford just to not live there anymore. I never took a solo night shift again. We still pass that street sometimes. That fruit stand is still there. And so is Ray, shouting, waving, watching. Every now and then, I wonder what would have happened if Aaron hadn't looked through the peephole that night. If he had just opened the door thinking it was me. What if Ray had gotten inside? No one would have heard us, no one would have come, because in Hartley, well, you're supposed to get used to it. I always thought we lived in a quiet neighborhood. Not the kind of suburbia perfect you see on Netflix shows, but the kind where you wave at your neighbor while taking out the trash, borrow a cup of sugar without hesitation, and trust that your front door only needs to be locked out of habit, not necessity. Our house sits at the end of a cul-de-sac in a medium-sized town just east of Phoenix, Arizona. It's dry, hot, and as my fiancé jokingly puts it, basically the sun's armpit. We moved here 3 years ago when housing was still affordable, thinking we'd landed in some safe pocket of calm away from city crime. And for the most part, it was, until last summer. At the time, I was unemployed, not by choice. My contract with the small marketing agency I worked for had ended abruptly, and with the industry tightening up, job leads were slim. My fiancé, Marcus, is a teacher at the local middle school and worked summer school shifts, so he'd be gone until late afternoons. My youngest brother, Tyler, who works nights for the county sheriff's department, was crashing with us for a few months while waiting on his new place to be move-in ready. Most days, I split my time between scrolling job boards at the public library and helping my dad with inventory at his auto parts business. That day, Thursday I remember, it was especially miserable out. I'd spent 3 hours on Indeed and LinkedIn, sweating through my shirt on the public library's sticky plastic chairs before giving up and heading home. It was just after 4 p.m. when I pulled into our driveway. The heat was clinging to everything like a wet blanket, and the neighborhood shimmered under the sun's glare. Our dog, Bailey, a blue heeler pit mix with more energy than common sense, greeted me at the door like I'd been gone a decade. She's a sweetheart to us, but with strangers? Total demon. Growls first, asks questions never. Marcus wouldn't be home for another hour. Tyler had left a note saying he was working overtime and might crash at the department nap room. So it was just me and Bailey. I let her out back to run and started filling the tub upstairs. Showers didn't cut it in weather like this. I needed a soak. I grabbed my Bluetooth speaker, queued up some classic rock, and threw a magazine on the sink. Just as I sank into the water, the house finally felt quiet. And that's when everything changed. About 15 minutes in, just as Ramble On was hitting its peak, Bailey started growling. Not her, someone's walking by growl. This was lower, guttural. Her serious growl. I paused the music. "Bailey," I called out. A beat later, the growl exploded into barks. Barking, snarling, full-on hellhound mode. Then came the sound of nails scrambling on tile. She was running. Then, I swear I'm not imagining this, I heard a man's voice. Not clear, not yelling, but startled. The kind of, "oh shit," someone says when they weren't expecting company. I froze. The kind of full-body lockup you get when you know something's wrong but your brain won't let you process it. I was naked, unarmed, and vulnerable. The house had 2 floors. I was upstairs in the hall bathroom, door shut but not locked. Bailey had been in the kitchen downstairs. If someone had come through the front or back door, she'd have seen them first. And now she was chasing someone. I heard a crash, something metallic falling over. Then the man yelling, screaming really. "Get off me," I heard him shout. Bailey was growling so loud it echoed up the stairs. I scrambled out of the tub, dripping everywhere, heart pounding like a war drum. My phone was on the counter, and I grabbed it with wet hands, slipping twice before finally dialing 911. I didn't wait for a prompt. "There's someone in my house," I said, breathless. "My dog's attacking him, I think. Please send help." The dispatcher kept me on the line. I was halfway into an old pair of gym shorts and pulling a hoodie over my head when I heard the back door slam. Bailey's barking suddenly faded, then got louder again. She was chasing him outside. "Oh my God," I muttered. "He's running, she's chasing him out the back." "Stay on the line," the dispatcher said. "Units are en route. Are you safe?" I grabbed the bat from under my bed, left the bathroom light on, and crept down the stairs, dripping and barefoot. I peeked outside through the kitchen window. Bailey was pacing along the fence line, panting, tail high, body tense. Whoever it was had run through our backyard. A few minutes later, 2 patrol cars rolled up, followed by an unmarked black sedan. Tyler had heard the call go out on the radio and diverted from his station. I didn't even recognize him at first. His uniform made him seem like a stranger. He took one look at me and the busted screen on the back door and went pale. He came inside. I nodded. Let himself in. I think he found the fake rock. The one by the AC unit? Yeah. Jesus, El. We talked about that thing. I know, okay? I said. guilt flushing hot across my cheeks. I didn't think. You never do, until something happens. His voice softened. Sorry. You okay? I nodded. Bailey barked from the upstairs window. A second later, my phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Langford across the street. Saw a man run through your yard. Shirtless. Cops caught him by the stop sign. Do you want me to bring Bailey a treat? The man was maybe 5'8", probably weighed 130 pounds soaking wet. No shirt, sunburned, twitching and bleeding from at least 3 bites. One on his calf, one on his side, and a deep one on his forearm. The EMTs patched him up enough to talk, but it was clear he wasn't all there. Meth, or maybe spice, possibly both. He didn't even have a weapon, just a dirty backpack and a screwdriver. He told police he thought the house was empty, said he was just looking for something to pawn, claimed he didn't mean to hurt anyone, didn't know there was a dog, just wanted some quick cash. That didn't stop my hands from shaking the rest of the night, or for several nights after that. In the days that followed, things changed. We put in a camera system, replaced the fake rock with a lockbox, reinforced the back door, put new blinds on every window. I couldn't sleep unless Bailey was next to the bed. We started keeping one gun in the nightstand, another locked in the kitchen, just in case. Tyler offered to move back in full-time, said he didn't feel right leaving us alone after that. I turned him down, but I appreciated it. He taught me how to safely handle the firearms. Marcus wasn't thrilled, but he understood. It's been nearly a year now. Bailey still gets a special dinner every month on the 14th. We call it her hero day. Steak, sweet potato, and a few bites of Marcus's hamburger bun. Some nights I still wake up thinking I hear footsteps downstairs. It's probably just the ice machine, or the house settling. But I keep the bat next to my bed anyway, just in case someone decides to try again, because now I know. Even in a quiet neighborhood, evil can knock on your door, or worse, walk right in. I grew up on a sleepy little street called Birchwood Lane in the town of Marlowe's Bluff, nestled somewhere on the eastern edge of the Caribbean. It wasn't the kind of place you'd find on a tourist map, just a row of modest homes with rusted gates, half-patched fences, and bougainvillea creeping over the walls like gossiping old ladies. Most of the families there were retired couples or single moms with too many jobs and too little time. Life was quiet, unremarkable, and safe. The kind of safe that made people leave their doors unlocked until the sun dipped below the cane fields. We weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. I was 11 at the time, lanky and forever barefoot, with dirt under my nails from digging holes in the yard pretending to find pirate treasure. My mom was a nurse who worked the late shift, and my dad had moved to Trinidad when I was 6. I spent most afternoons outside, riding a rusted bike with a flat-back tire or playing soccer with the neighborhood kids. Back then there was one house on Birchwood Lane that stood out, not because it was ugly, but because it was too beautiful. It was a pale yellow 2-story, with arched windows, a red-tiled roof, and a tall iron gate that always seemed to be open but guarded. It looked like a mansion compared to the rest of our block. Marble statues lined the walkway, and the hedges were so perfectly trimmed it felt like they were sculpted with nail clippers. The family who lived there, the Moreaus, were unlike the rest of us. The dad, Mr. Louis Moreau, was rarely seen. If you caught a glimpse, it was of his back getting into a tinted black SUV, always wearing a linen shirt and gold-rimmed glasses. The mom, Maria, was younger, soft-spoken, with eyes that darted around like she was always expecting bad news. They had 4 kids, all homeschooled, and the youngest, Isabel, we all called Izzy. Izzy was 5 when I first met her. She was small for her age, with wide brown eyes, curly hair tied into 2 puffs, and a voice that was always asking questions. Somehow she'd become part of our group. She never wore shoes, and she had this habit of wandering into our house without knocking, sitting at the kitchen table with my mom like she lived there. It didn't take long for the neighborhood to start whispering. My mom and the other women on the street talked in hushed voices about how strange it was that a girl that small was always outside by herself, even late at night. She'd be out until 11, sometimes midnight, even on school nights. But because it was Marlowe's Bluff where nothing ever happened, nobody made a fuss. One afternoon, as we kicked a ball around, someone asked what our parents did. When we got to Izzy, her older brother Julian answered quickly, "Business." That was it. Just business. None of them ever really knew what kind of business, or maybe they did and just weren't allowed to say. They said their dad traveled a lot and had a lot of meetings. We shrugged it off. We were kids. We were more interested in who brought juice boxes. Then came the birthday. When Izzy turned 6, her family threw the biggest party the block had ever seen. There were bouncy castles, a water slide, hired clowns, and what looked like a full catering crew. Music blared through the neighborhood, and kids from all over town poured in. But my mom wouldn't let me go. She didn't know the parents, she said. I'd never seen her so stern. I remember standing by the gate watching the other kids run through clouds of colored smoke and water sprays while I kicked rocks in the dirt, feeling forgotten. The next day it was like nothing had happened. Izzy was back at my house with sticky candy fingers and glitter still stuck in her hair. Life rolled on. Until the night of the gunshots. It was late, around 10:45. We were all outside playing a game with flashlights, turning off the porch lights and hiding in shadows. That's when we heard them. Pop, 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 pop. 4 in quick succession, loud enough to shake the windows. Then silence. I'll never forget the way the neighborhood changed in a heartbeat. Doors slammed open, porch lights flickered on, and our parents screamed for us to get inside. My mom pulled me in so fast I dropped my flashlight on the lawn. People were yelling. I saw Mr. Castillo, our neighbor who used to be a cop, grab a baseball bat and sprint toward the Moreau's house. A black van tore down the road, its headlights off, nearly hitting a stray dog as it sped away. From our window, I saw 3 men in all black go into the house. One had something slung over his back. A gun, I think. The front door was left wide open. Someone screamed. My mom wouldn't let me leave the house for 2 days. All I remember is the police cars arriving in waves, then the ambulance. One of the officers questioned me the next morning, asked if Izzy ever said anything strange about her parents, or if I'd ever seen anything unusual at their place. But I was a kid. What could I say? All I cared about was whether my Wii controller still worked. The Moreaus vanished after that. The house sat empty for months. No for sale sign, no cleaning crew. But every now and then, we'd see the same black van again. Different license plate, same van. The men would knock on doors asking questions, flashing badges that didn't quite look real. They wanted to know where the kids were. One even asked my mom if she'd seen a little girl with curly hair and glittery shoes. No one talked. Not to them, not to each other. Birchwood Lane had turned from quiet to silent. The kids didn't play outside anymore. Some families even moved away. Years passed. The house slowly began to decay. Grass grew wild, vines crept over the gate, and the windows collected layers of salt and dust. The statues out front cracked and crumbled like they couldn't bear the weight of the memories they'd witnessed. I didn't think about Izzy for a long time, until recently. I'm 28 now. I still live in Marlowe's Bluff, though not on Birchwood Lane. My mom retired and moved to Barbados. I run a small mechanic shop near the port. Last month I ran into Mr. Castillo, the ex-cop, at a roadside bar. After a few drinks I finally asked him, what really happened that night? He stared at his drink for a long time before answering. Louis Moreau wasn't a businessman, he said quietly. He was a trafficker, high level. Drugs, people, both. He was about to flip, give up names. The DEA had him on a leash, ready to pull in his whole network. That night, that was them cutting the leash. The men in the van had put 3 bullets in Louis's head while he was eating dinner. His wife, Maria, had been shot too, but she survived. Barely. She's still in protective custody somewhere in the States. The oldest son, Julian, tried to run. They found his body in a burned car 2 towns over. The other kids, Mr. Castillo said, his voice getting lower, were relocated under witness protection, scattered across countries. Different names, new lives. I asked about Izzy. He didn't know for sure, but he said the last rumor he heard was that she ended up in Canada, living with a foster family under a different name. I just hope she remembers who she really is, he said, and that she stays safe. That night I went home and dug out the old photo album I kept from my childhood. In it, between grainy pictures of birthday cakes and school plays, was a photo of Izzy, barefoot, grinning, her arm around my shoulders. We were standing by my front gate, and in the background you could see the yellow mansion peeking out behind the hedge. She looked so small. I sat there staring at that photo for a long time, wondering if she remembered Birchwood Lane, if she remembered me, if she still wore glitter in her hair. I heard that the Moreau house is set to be demolished soon. A new resort wants to buy up the land. Part of me wants to go back, sneak in one last time before it's gone. Maybe stand in the same spot where we used to play. Maybe say goodbye. But another part of me thinks some places are better left alone. Some memories are safer in silence. And so the yellow house sits there still, crumbling, forgotten. But if you walk down Birchwood Lane late enough in the right kind of moonlight, you might still hear the soft echo of a little girl's laugh and wonder whatever happened to the barefoot child who used to call herself Izzy. I didn't move for a fresh start. I moved because I had to. The company I worked for was downsizing, and when my contract ended, I got lucky with another job offer that came in fast but was located out of state. So in early fall of last year, I packed up my small apartment in Nevada and relocated to a house about 20 minutes outside of a city called Brookhaven in Washington. Not the real name, of course, but close enough. The kind of town where you get 4 full seasons, and people wave at you even if they've never met you. It felt like something out of a small-town magazine, peaceful, a little quiet, but safe. Or at least, it looked safe. The house I moved into was a rental, a pale blue single-story with a decent yard and tall pine trees at the back. The landlord had warned me it was a bit older but full of charm. I didn't care much about charm. I just wanted walls, a roof, and somewhere to breathe while I got used to the new job. It was secluded enough that I didn't hear traffic at night, just the occasional owl or wind brushing the trees. The first 2 nights were uneventful. I spent them unpacking, organizing, making grocery runs, and figuring out how to get to work without relying on GPS. On the 3rd night, I decided to put together the TV stand for my bedroom. My plan was to finally relax, binge something mindless, and ignore the cardboard boxes still stacked in the hallway. I remember the noise started faint, a scuffing sound, something shifting. I paused and listened, assuming it was just the old house settling. Then I heard it again, sharper this time, like something scraped against the floorboards, from the wrong end of the house. I put down the screwdriver and stood completely still. The sound came again, closer to the dining room this time. It wasn't wind or a tree branch. It was inside. Footsteps. Then a creak, unmistakably the back door opening. I froze in the hallway, maybe 5 steps from the dining room. My heart pounded in my ears. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I heard retreating steps. Fast. The back door creaked again. Open. Close. I didn't chase after whoever it was. I couldn't. I was too stunned. But I did something. I ran to the side window that faced the backyard and looked out just in time to see a man walking away, not running, but with urgency. His back was to me. Average height, broad shoulders, dark brown, slightly messy hair. The kind of face that would get lost in a crowd, but I caught enough to remember it. He didn't turn back once. I locked the back door. It hadn't been forced open. I don't know if I'd forgotten to lock it or if he'd picked it. Either way, the police weren't able to figure it out when I called. They took a report. I gave a vague description. No camera footage. No evidence. Nothing to work with. They were polite, but I could see it in their eyes. They didn't expect to find him, Not unless he did something worse next time. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in the living room with a bat and the porch light on until sunrise. 2 days later, I was outside raking up pine needles by the curb. It was just past noon and the street was mostly empty. A few cars passed, a dog barked somewhere, and I was starting to feel like maybe it was all a one-time thing. A mistake. Maybe the guy thought it was a different house. Maybe he was high. I wanted it to be something I could explain, even if it wasn't comforting. That's when I saw him again. He was walking down the road toward me. Same messy hair, same walk. My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to act normal, kept raking like I hadn't noticed him. I told myself I must be mistaken, couldn't be him, but then he stopped, right in front of me. He smiled. "Hey, you just move in?" I turned slowly, heart pounding. "Yeah, just last week." "Cool," he said. "I live just down the road, like 5 houses that way." He pointed down the street, figured I'd say hi. He acted like we were strangers, friendly, casual, but I knew it was him. I nodded politely, trying to hold the rake steady. "Nice to meet you." "Same. Name's Trevor." He extended a hand. I shook it. His grip was firm. Normal. Too normal. He didn't act like someone who had broken into my house 2 nights ago, but why would he approach me if he knew I'd seen him? We made small talk for less than a minute. I barely heard half of what he said, something about the weather, maybe about trash days. And then he walked off, waving as he left. I stood there in my front yard, the rake limp in my hands, trying to understand what just happened, trying to convince myself I was wrong, that it couldn't be him. But it was. That night I went to the police again, gave them his name, told them what happened. They confirmed he lived on my street, but he denied everything, said he'd never been near my house, said I was probably just confused. I didn't have proof, no footage, no fingerprints, just my word. And that wasn't enough. I installed cameras at both doors the next day. Weeks passed, nothing else happened. No more footsteps, no more uninvited visits. But every time I walked to my car or came home after dark, I felt watched. Not always, but often enough. Sometimes I'd see Trevor in passing, at the mailbox walking his dog, trimming his hedge. He always waved, always smiled. One night in late October, I got home late from work. I parked in the driveway, looked up at my front porch and saw a shape dart away behind the bushes. Just for a second, just long enough to make me freeze in place. I checked the cameras. The front porch one had glitched. A brief blank screen from 7:42 to 7:47 p.m., the same window I came home. The back camera caught nothing. I couldn't prove it, but I knew someone had been there, watching, waiting. I couldn't sleep again. I kept the lights on. I called the cops, but they said unless I had evidence, they couldn't do anything. I thought about moving, but I didn't have the money or time. I had just signed a lease. I started carrying pepper spray. I kept my phone charged and within arm's reach at all times. I told my boss I needed to work remote twice a week. I bought motion lights. Nothing happened again, but that just made it worse, because now I was waiting. Then, one night in early December, it escalated. I was in bed when I heard my front doorbell ring. It was 2:38 a.m. I didn't move, I didn't breathe. The bell rang again. Not frantic. Just once. Then silence. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera feed. The porch light was on. The camera was working. And there he was. Trevor. Just standing there, staring at the door, not moving, not ringing the bell again, just watching. He stood there for almost 3 minutes, then walked away. I saved the footage, took it straight to the police the next day. This time they took it more seriously. They went to his house, spoke with him. He claimed he was just drunk and confused that night, thought he was at someone else's place. They gave him a warning. That was it. I broke my lease a week later. I paid the penalty, packed in 2 days, called a friend from the old job and begged to crash with her in Spokane until I could find something else. I don't live in Brookhaven anymore, and I'm glad I don't. But I still think about that first night, about the way he walked away so calmly, about how he knew exactly where I lived, and how he never once looked surprised to see me. He didn't come to my house by accident. He wanted me to know he was there. Neighborhoods are supposed to feel safe, but sometimes the scariest people aren't the ones hiding in the woods or breaking into windows under cover of darkness. Sometimes they smile, say hello, live just 5 houses down. It started with a move, like so many stories do. I wasn't escaping anything dramatic. No bitter breakup, no job loss, no dark past. I just wanted something quieter than city life, something that felt stable, predictable. A small 2-bedroom home with a porch and decent yard in a suburb called Maplewood Ridge seemed perfect. It was tucked about 20 minutes outside Denver, just far enough to breathe and close enough to feel like I hadn't entirely disappeared from the world. I moved in mid-September. The leaves were just beginning to rust and neighbors were already setting out pumpkins. It felt warm in that Hallmark movie kind of way. I waved to joggers, exchanged small talk with dog walkers, and got a pie from the woman across the street. Mrs. Langston, retired nurse, local gossip. It all seemed right. But the house to my left, number 219, was different. It looked cared for. The lawn was neat, the hedges trimmed. But I never saw anyone outside. No decorations, no deliveries, no one opening blinds in the morning or taking trash bins to the curb. Still, someone lived there. A silver sedan was always in the driveway. Sometimes it moved, sometimes it didn't. I figured, hey, not everyone's social. Maybe they worked nights, maybe they were old, or sick, or private. I had enough to worry about inside my own walls, unpacking, work emails, setting up Wi-Fi. It wasn't until week 3 that I saw him. I had just gotten back from picking up a new shower curtain from Target. It was late afternoon. Sun low enough to tint the sky orange, air still warm. I got out of my car, turned toward my house, and froze. He was standing at his window, the neighbor, just inside the sheer white curtains of 219, unmoving, staring straight at me. He wasn't old. Mid to late 40s, maybe. Sharp features, clean-shaven, eyes dark enough to look hollow from across the yard. He didn't flinch when I caught him, didn't wave, didn't look away, just stared like he was trying to memorize me. I offered a stiff, polite wave. Nothing. After a second, I turned and walked to my door, heart ticking slightly faster than normal, but I talked myself down. People are weird. Maybe he had poor eyesight. Maybe he was zoned out. Maybe I was reading into it. That night, I told my friend Kendra about it over video chat. He was just standing there, doing nothing. I nodded. Just watching, dead serious. No smile, not even blinking, I swear. Creepy, she said, leaning closer to her screen. People like that always make me think unsolved Netflix documentary. I laughed, but it stuck in my head. A week passed. I didn't see him again. Then, one night, it was around 10:30 p.m. I got home after a late shift. I parked, locked up, and slung my work bag over my shoulder. As I walked up to my porch, something made me glance left. There he was. Same window, same stair, now lit faintly by the glow of a nearby streetlight. He looked somehow sharper, more defined in the dark, like he belonged in it. This time I didn't wave. I just went inside quickly and locked the door. I tried to be logical. He hadn't done anything. Maybe it was just coincidence. Maybe the way his house was laid out made it look like he was staring when he wasn't. I thought that until the night at 3:57 a.m. I woke up with my throat dry, skin clammy from a nightmare I couldn't remember. I needed water. My reusable bottle was empty, so I crept barefoot to the kitchen. Lights off, phone flashlight guiding the way. I passed the front window and instinctively peeked out. He was in my front yard, standing between the sidewalk and my porch in the shadows, facing the window, staring. Again, no movement, no gesture, just watching. And this time, there was no glass between us, just 10 feet of open space. I ducked, heart pounding. I crept to the side window. He was gone. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning I called Kendra. "You need to go over there," she said. "Ask him what the hell he was doing." Should I call the police? Technically, he didn't do anything illegal, but yeah, if he shows up again, absolutely. I hesitated. I'll try talking to him first. That afternoon I walked over. The sedan was in the driveway, porch empty, curtains closed. I hesitated before knocking. It took almost a full minute, but the door opened. Same man, same hollow eyes. He was taller up close than I expected. Thin, expression unreadable. I offered a tense smile. "Hi, I'm Isla. I live next door. I saw you outside my house last night. Just wanted to ask if everything was okay." His voice was cold, low. "I wasn't at your house. I'm pretty sure it was you. You're wrong." His tone changed, tight with anger now. "Don't knock on my door again." He slammed it. I stood there a moment, stunned, then walked back, heart pounding. I felt unsafe, but also unsure of what to do. I didn't see him for a while. A few weeks passed in silence. Leaves fell. Halloween came and went. Then one night I heard a tap on my bedroom window. I lived alone. It was 2:11 a.m. I froze in bed, covers up to my chest, listening. Another tap. Slow. Deliberate. I got up, heart in my ears, tiptoed to the window, pulled the curtain just enough to peek. Nothing. But the sound had been real. I knew it. The next day, I installed cameras. One above the front door, one facing the driveway, one aimed square at the side yard near the bedroom window. Kendra helped me. "If he touches your property again, call the cops, no hesitation." 2 nights later, the side camera caught motion. 3 a.m. A tall figure crept between our houses, slowly, deliberately. He didn't approach the window this time. He just stopped halfway down the path, stood still, and stared at my side wall. He stayed there for 6 minutes, then backed away, never turning his back. I called the police. Officer Travis Baird came out, took a report, watched the footage, wrote everything down. "I can't prove intent," he said carefully, "but I can go talk to him, let him know he's being watched." He did. Martin Bellamy, that was his name, denied everything. Said I was paranoid, that he worked nights and slept during the day. Officer Baird told me to keep the cameras up and call again if things escalated. For a month, nothing happened. Then one night I found a Polaroid photo slipped under my front door. It was a picture of me, taken through my bedroom window. I hadn't seen him. I hadn't heard anything. And yet, there it was. Me, sitting cross-legged on my bed, reading. Curtains mostly drawn but not shut completely. I sat on the kitchen floor holding that photo, shaking. For the first time since moving in, I genuinely considered breaking my lease. I called the police again. This time they took it seriously. They checked with the landlord, who revealed that Martin had a history of disturbances at a previous rental, but nothing on record that would have flagged him. Still, there wasn't enough to arrest him. Then, he vanished. The sedan was gone. The house empty, no goodbye, no moving truck. One day, I saw Mrs. Langston and asked if she'd heard anything. "Left in the middle of the night," she said, watering her plants. U-Haul pulled up around 1 a.m. Was gone by morning. Quiet man, always gave me the creeps. That was the last anyone saw of him. That was 3 years ago. I still live here. Still check the cameras every morning. Sometimes I wonder, why me? Did I remind him of someone? Was I just unlucky? And sometimes late at night I get the sense that someone is watching again. A flicker in the corner of my eye. A shadow that doesn't match the tree line. But when I check the cameras, there's nothing. Just silence, just stillness, just the memory of a man who watched and waited, and might still be watching. Somewhere.